Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your braver, bravest hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today we will review a slightly different super robot show where two friends fight a bunch of evil aliens by joining forces in Brave Bang Bravern. And of course, before we get to that, we have to talk a bit about a couple of premieres we checked out in the sneak peek. So climb into the cockpit of your monogamous mech, let your soul burn bright to unleash your bravest bang, and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back.
I get the picture. They try to hit you. They try to kick you when you're down and out.
Alright, yeah, sneak peek time, as usual. A bit late this time around for several reasons, because we recorded our season finale with the Attack on Titan review a bit late, because we had a guest, and also then it turned out a lot of shows just premiered late or took a while to get going, but at some point we were like, maybe we should just start, because also vacation coming up, whatever, and we're not... Yeah. We gotta land in June or something until we do our goddamn premiere episode, so that doesn't make sense. So for that reason,
as of this recording, Demon Slayer has still not started, which spoilers we're both probably going to watch. Yes. And you know, it's funny. I said it to you, I think when we weren't recording. Oh, look at how late Jeff Thu and Gigak are sometimes with their season previews. And of course, this was the season they're the earliest they've ever been. Screw the both of you. We love you. We love you both.
I mean, with Demon Slayer, it's probably like, didn't they do like a movie that again encompasses like the first 3 episodes of the next arc or something?
I'm not sure if they did that this time, but I know from looking it up that the premiere is supposed to be an hour long. So
yeah, we eventually got to not all the shows that we wanted to maybe talk about, and some only in passing, but we get
most of them at least.
Yes. Not that many this time for me anyway, though, but we still got still some leftovers from the previous season. So I assume there will be enough to review by the end of this. We're not going to have a packed season this time around. So we'll see how it turns out next. But yeah, as usual, in the sneak peek, we have our nopes, our maybes, and our keepers for first-time listeners. The nopes, the shows that we took a look at and we're like, nope. Not gonna keep on watching that. Then the maybes, shows we're not entirely sure about if we're gonna stick with them, and the keepers, shows that we liked a lot what we were seeing, so we're gonna keep on watching those probably. So yeah, John, I think you got a nope, which I don't have. So do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I just feel like before we get into that real quick that Urusei Yatsura and Delicious in Dungeon are sort of continuing in the background. Probably won't talk about Urusei Yatsura, but I'm sure we'll talk about Delicious in Dungeon when it's wrapped. So they are still ongoing, and they deserve mention at least. But yes, my one drop is Highspeed Étoile.
Oh yeah, I think I was like, this could be a show for Jen, because cute girl doing cute things, also racing. But then I looked at the general reception to the first episode. I was like, maybe not.
Oh my god, okay. Like, wow. The racing stuff, like when it was, it's so weird, because the racing stuff in, we talked about an overtake. Yeah, that was kind of neat. It was really cool to see.
Yes.
And they didn't lean on it too heavily because there were other things going on. And then in this show, they're leaning on it so heavily, and just like it's so boringly presented, and it's like not interesting. And the character designs are kind of bleh, and the CG is bleh.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's the ugliest CG show I've ever seen, but it's not. It's not.
I mean, good. It's not Handshakers.
Nothing will ever be Handshakers. I mean, this sort of ties into one of my maybes in regard to CG, but we'll get to that. But I think I watched 2 episodes of this, and I was falling asleep at the end of the second episode, like no joke. And I was like, usually when I'm tired and I fall asleep watching something, I'll like rewind and try to rewatch and be like, catch the thing. This one was like, I can't be bothered. Get out of here. I'm done.
That's a surefire sign for a nope.
Yeah, so sorry, Highspeed Étoile. I was actually really interested in you because I had seen before the show started. This one artist I follow on Pixiv had been, posting pieces from it. I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought the promo art that was on Live Chart, Unshot, whatever, looked pretty good. Like and the car designs too, and it was like, okay, this could be something.
And that artist is still continuing to post really cool promo art on their account, which, that's neat. It's just it didn't come together in the actual show.
Bummer.
So it
happens.
Yeah.
So
true.
Shall we continue on with the maybes?
Yes, please.
Yes. Well, my first maybe. Go Loser Ranger. No?
Yes? I had seen the name thrown around, but I didn't watch it.
So yeah, this is I don't know what this is yet, really. It starts out as like your standard Sentai show in anime form, where it's like, hey, you got your Colored Ranger team, which are called the Dragon Keepers in this, and they fight these monsters that came to our world in a giant flying fortress and have been there apparently for 30 years now. Yeah. And every Sunday or something, there's like this huge battle in the Colosseum where a bunch of the minions, in the Sentai, there are always these smaller minions that are easily defeated before the big monster appears. And these minions then, with the monster, teleport into the stadium. The minions are called Dusters in this show. And then there's a fight, and they get sent back to the fortress, and then they come back the next week. And apparently, like I said, this battle has been going on for 13 years. And as it turns out later in the episode, the evil fortress was already taken down after 1 year. And all the bosses are dead. So, since then, the Dusters, the grunts basically, have been trying to come up with new monsters each week.
God.
And that they transform into themselves, but they're also immortal. So once they get beaten, they just get sent back up. And this is kind of a performance scam. I don't know who initiated it, because they are still doing it, not with any hopes of ever winning, because so far they fought the Rangers, the Dragon Keepers, 998 times and always lost. So maybe
it's going to be that 1000th time, man.
Yeah, maybe, but. Understandably, even though they are immortal, the Dusters are sick of always losing at this point. One Duster especially, the one with the letter D. So D decides to try something different. He will destroy their enemies from the inside by becoming one of the Rangers himself. So yeah, and that is how the first episode wraps up. I haven't watched anything more. It's a fun concept, and it's very well animated. But the comedy hasn't quite hit for me yet. There's some funny bits in there, and, the whole idea is funny. Something, whoever creates, I assume something from Earth that's behind this, because, of course, this drives a lot of... You see in the beginning that all the Rangers have, like, these advertising contracts and are, selling whatever, like cosmetics and cars and, I don't know, and snake oil. The huge... And so there's probably money involved. So I assume some capable advertising agent understood this very quickly when these battles ensued. So now they make this happen every Sunday because they don't want the money to go away. They want to ride this money train. So
it's literally Monster of the Week. I love it.
Yes, actually, it is exactly that. So... I wonder how this will play out. Of course, we'll see. So far, there is not really anything to attach myself to in terms of characters. I mean, like, the plight of D makes sense. Like, of course, why would you keep on losing? Just being stuck. It's kind of, again, like the Zone 100 thing. They're stuck in a shitty job. They kind of can't get out because, if they don't do this, apparently they can't survive. Oh. This is not specified, like, who is going to kill them if they don't keep up this charade, like, who is responsible for all of this, right? Apparently they are not. So I assume we're going to get filled into that in the coming episodes. But outside of the concept, there were not any really, really good jokes in the first episode that totally hit for me. There's one where the the monster that is themed like a tiger then turns into a tiger car in this weird little transporter, the typical Japanese transporter thing, when it does its final attack, and it's like, is this a Totoro reference? What is this? I don't understand. Is there a car that is named that way? or because truck and Tora sound almost the same? Toraku, Tora, maybe. But yes, so I guess that was kind of funny, but outside of that, it's just the concept itself, and the dusters bickering amongst themselves, trying to come up with a new monster design that is appropriately themed and that they haven't had like 7 years ago or something like that, kind of made me feel like be able to relate to them in that regard, because that's how I feel when I'm trying to come up with a new thing that I'm going to call us in the intros of our shows, like what kind of hosts we are. It's like, wait, what? Did we have this already? Did I use this before? Fuck. Probably did at some point. I'm not.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
I'm not keeping track, but I'm trying to think if, wait, did we do this? So yeah, in that regard, I feel like this is funny, but I don't know if this is gonna go somewhere interesting, or if it's just gonna be a standard, I don't know, workplace comedy or something like that. It all depends on what they do with the characters, and if there's anything interesting to the Rangers, and if there's anything interesting happening with it would be really funny if this turned into a super grimdark revenge thing for D.
Oh, God.
I can't see that happening, but we'll see. So, yeah. I'm going to check out a couple more episodes of this, but that's why it's still a maybe. I don't know if the humor will develop into something that actually, and the characters that will keep me engaged. But yeah. First episode was fun. John.
So I was kind of disappointed when I talked about the Idolmaster Million Live.
I remember, yeah.
And it was very janky, not great CG. So along comes the Idolmaster Shiny Colors, and the CG is better than I was hoping for.
Okay.
It's so weird, because in Million Live, I feel like Million Live and Highspeed Étoile had sort of the same issue where it's like, and I guess this is how 3D works, like the characters were just moved into position and posed, and that's it. Whereas it feels like in Shiny Colors, like the motion and the animation is a lot more natural, and I think that's what really does it for me and makes it feel like there's a lot more consideration for it. Yeah. I think that's the right word to use.
It feels more deliberate and more planned out, and someone actually was putting some thought into that. It was not just, this goes here, or whatever.
Yeah, because I said to you, I was a little trepidatious going into it because it's being headed up by Polygon Pictures.
Mm-hmm.
No, I feel like they're kind of putting in the work and making the characters look good and animate real naturally. So I was pleasantly surprised to see it continue on past like the first couple of episodes. So, number one shock that John is, watching an idol show. Oh no, who would have thought?
Mm-hmm.
But, when the effort is there, and I'm glad it is, that Bandai Namco was like, hey, maybe we'll throw some money at this for once to remind people of what's good about this franchise. Thank you for actually doing that for once. Because the last time was 13 years ago, dude. But yeah, so this follows the story of I forget how many girls there are. There's a lot. And it's based off of a mobile / browser game. Idolmaster has a weird history with mobile games where Cinderella Girls and Million Live both started off as this like card collecting thing, and then they sort of spun off into rhythm games, whereas this is Shiny Colors is more of like the actual original arcade game and older console games, where it's like, no, it's an actual idol sim where you have to, you're going out and you're doing dance lessons, you're going to performances, you're trying to gain the attention of fans. So on the game side, it's, a lot more like what you would expect. On the anime side, you're seeing the day-to-day of the girls and them planning out their performances and their public appearances and this and that and the other thing. And usually each episode has a main focus on a different group of girls. But, you see sort of like little blinks of the other groups in between to like break things up. And it's really well paced in regard to that. So I think this has some potential to be really good. So this, along with my other maybe, is kind of leaning on being a keeper, and kind of glad to see that.
Glad to hear that. I mean, especially after the disappointment that was the previous show.
Yeah, I don't think I'll get over the previous show, man.
Maybe this one will help you.
There's also something weird with the licensing for the show, because Crunchyroll is like, yeah, we got the show. It's coming. Don't worry. And then it didn't show up for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, so is this a case where they said they got the license and nobody got the message? And then it just showed up like 2 or 3 episodes at once. And I was like, oh, okay. So you actually did do the thing. Cool, I guess. But yeah, definitely going to watch more of it. So what have you got next?
My other maybe is The Grimm Variations, which is a show on Netflix. 6 episodes already fully released, as they do. I only managed to watch the first one until now. It is an alternate retelling of some of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, done by their sister, which I'm not sure existed, probably not, or something like that. I don't quite. There's this short introduction thing where you see the 2 brothers and her sister then appears and they tell her about one of the stories, and then you get actually, pulled into the story. And at first I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. It's done by Studio Wit. Oh. And, the small, intro thing with the brothers and this Grimm and the sister Grimm, I guess, has like this unique storybook look to it. I was like, oh, this looks, this looks pretty unique, nice. But that's only for the interesting thing. Sadly, it's not. Maybe it would have been too heavy on the production to do it for the whole show. I don't know how much work went into that. I just know it looked really unique, and I would have loved for the whole show to look like that. But also maybe each episode looks a bit different. I'm not sure, but it looks very standard anime. Once the actual story starts, which in the first episode is a retelling of Cinderella, set in Japan. Of course, in this case, I don't know if they set all the stories in Japan. But then it becomes more standard anime stuff. It still looks great because it's Wit, but it's not like the first couple of minutes of this show where it's like, oh, this looks really different. So I hope they do something maybe different with the coming episodes. I don't know. This was like immediately caught my eye, and I was like just a bit disappointed when it just switched over to just being a normal, good-looking anime. So, but yeah, the spin on the story, like this particular spin, makes Cinderella kind of the bad guy. She's a little scheming monster that messes with her stepsisters and stepmother for her own amusement. And there's also more of a horror component to it. The stepsisters are still stuck up arrogant brats, but you feel at least a bit sorry for them in this. Like, they're so completely outmatched by Cinderella, or rather Kyoko, which is her name in this. But, roughly the story follows kind of the same beats as the original one, but, then it's completely subverted by the different roles these characters take. And that's a neat concept in itself. I think we had a couple of those in the past anyway, from Hollywood and other places. So I'm willing to see what Wit does with it. But, there's still some things where like, maybe this won't stay a keeper. First of all, the format, it's 6 episodes, it's 1-hour episodes, and I feel like none of the shows that did this so far, and I think this only happens on Netflix, like where they do this 1-hour format instead of the standard 25 minutes format, or it's not 1 hour, it's 45 minutes in this case. But, longer format. And I think they did it for Spriggan and for Pluto. And I feel like for both these shows, it wasn't necessary, and also it didn't work as well. I still love Pluto. I still kind of liked Spriggan, but it was like, okay, why did you do 1 hour things? Because Netflix wanted it to be different, because you wanted to have more freedom in terms of how you told the story and where you had to make the cut, but also you obviously made the cuts like you were adapting a manga, so the manga felt already structured like it was like preparing for an anime adaptation. It made sense to make cuts at certain places anyway, so it doesn't make sense to make this a 1 hour format, and it doesn't work in certain moments. I talked about this in more detail in the Pluto review, so I won't go into it again. But in this, I guess it works a bit better, at least in this first episode, because it really feels like one continuous story from beginning to end, and there's not really any. I feel like, yes, there might be 3 act structure to it, but also it feels more like samey in terms of it feels more even. Like they're not like these highs and lows and super stakes, and now shit is really happening. Now there's a super climax happening. It feels more like I don't know, like it's petering along a bit. And that was also something where it's like, I feel like there should be more of a bang here at a certain point. And I mean, when Cinderella dances with the prince and all the, or Kyoko, whatever, dances with the prince, you see that all the stuff that happened in this episode were her machinations, but you already knew this, but it's still framed like this big reveal. It's like, oh, she did all of this and she did it intentionally. And yes, we knew this. But I guess that's the biggest climax feeling moment of this episode. So I wonder if the coming episodes will have a more interesting, structure, or do something a bit more interesting with the storytelling and the stories themselves than is just switching the character roles around. Mm-hmm. Still, the concept itself is interesting enough. And, it's a short season. I assume it's finished up because it's just 6 closed off stories. Let me see what the coming ones are. Right, so the next one would be Little Red Riding Hood. Then we have Hansel and Gretel. Then we have the Elves and the Shoemaker, the Town Musicians of Bremen, Pied Piper of Hamelin. I know all of these. I like all of these to varying degrees. So I'm interested to see where these stories go. I just hope that the Town Musicians of Bremen doesn't completely subverts and kills off all the animals by the end. That would make me really sad.
No.
Yeah, I don't want that. It's such a triumphant story. We'll see. We'll see where this goes. I'm interested to check more of it out. I just hope it can keep me engaged. Maybe because it's just one story per episode that will happen, because I know something new is always around the corner, right? So there's always the hope that something might be different, and, production values on the wit side of things and everything. So, yes, bordering on a keeper, maybe, but also there's still some things where it's like, you could maybe do something more with that. Maybe picking Cinderella as the first one, as your showcase thing wasn't the best idea, because it's also not that big or a super exciting story to begin with. I would assume Little Red Riding Hood or maybe Pied Piper or the Town Musicians of Bremen would have been the better choice here. But if I review it, that will probably be the place where I tell which story I would have put first. So we'll see. It's interesting enough, but I don't know if it will keep my interest for its entire runtime. So we'll see. John, what is your next, maybe?
I get to jump back into the gacha mines with Blue Archive.
Oh, right. Yes. You talked about this.
Yeah, a little bit. So, cute girls with guns.
Yeah. Yes! That opening OP gave me whiplash, because I wasn't familiar really with anything Blue Archive, and then you showed me this because it has incredible production values. And then it was like, oh, cute girls doing cute things, of course. And then the bitches be packing. And I was like, what? What is going on here? What?
So I will say that more than just the opening sequence in the show as well, that gacha money is paying for this show.
Yes, it looks the part.
Yeah, it looks really good all throughout. So basically, of course, it's a gacha game with a million different characters, but the focus of the story is these 5 girls who are attending the Abydos High School, and they are trying to raise the money to keep the school from being foreclosed, and the debt that they have accrued is unfathomably large. But there's more than just that to it. There's also all sorts of students in rival schools and factions and whatnot, and they have
rival
to deal
schools. You say?
Yes, reunited by fate. You might even say.
Mm-hmm.
Real ones will get that. But a lot of it comes down to it being a turf war, and these girls have to, fight with guns and grenades and rocket launchers and sniper rifles to keep, safe what is theirs.
Is that a live ammo? Are they using live ammo, or is this just, I don't know, Nerf shit? Or
I think that's the implication. It's not clear in the show.
Are people dying, John, is what I'm asking.
I'm going to tell you something. I played the game for a little bit, and the implication is not 100% clear. But
maybe so they can bring some girls back because it's a gacha thing.
Shut up! Don't worry about it.
All right. I mean, I thought this would maybe be an Akaba Maid War situation, but apparently not. So
yeah, well, But Abydos is also in this region called Kivotos, and there was this big, devastating sandstorm that it keeps ripping through and basically burying parts of the city, and it's kind of a wasteland, and it's not in a good shape. So along comes this teacher. That's you, the player. Who is coming along. I don't want that. Who is coming along to, help the girls, depending on what story you're following, do their thing. And it seems like, again, they're focusing on Abydos in this. And it's the story of this teacher who's trying to help these girls out. And apparently he taps into this system called, can you guess what it's called? Can you guess that maybe it's called the Blue Archive? To help them out, and kind of goes forward from there. And the first few episodes have been kind of silly day-to-day stuff, and from what I had played of the game, I was like, yeah, I had seen bits of this story, but it's neat to see it animated. There is a sequence with these girls from this, they're trying to be this clandestine operation called Problem Solver 68, I think is the number.
Sure.
And their leader, Aru, she's something else, because she's trying to put on this tough girl act, and it's like, you're not her. Come on, please get it together. But it makes it kind of goofy, and it gives the show some levity, and it's nice to see, these characters who I had only seen in live 2D form, be brought to life this way. And, it's a really pretty show. And it's nice to see these gacha games get good adaptations after, for a real long time. Gacha, game adaptations and gacha adaptations were just you just throw it away. But it seems like the gacha money is working. It seems like it's doing what it should be.
I mean, if it's nice, it's not only landing in the pockets of the big corpo, but they're also investing it into products you might also enjoy down the road, like these anime adaptations. I'm wondering... Sorry.
Before Princess Connect, I can't remember the last really good one that I watched, because Azure Lane was kind of...
Yeah.
And before that, I can't remember.
Princess Connect is the only one I remember as well. I wonder, though, is this, in terms of the teacher character, who is, like you said, the self-insert, does he get an actual character, or is this kind of like a Princess Connect situation where where we get a mute plot device?
Listen, leave Yuki alone.
Yuki is a good boy, but still, he's barely a character.
That's true. No, the teacher, the sensei, depending on how you want to refer to him, it seems like he is more than nothing at least compared to like Yuki. So I'm glad to see that, he's there to support the girls to a point, because sometimes the decisions they make at one point, they're like, oh, here's our, our payment on this installment of the debt. And you can see this twinkle in their eyes. What if we just knocked down the armored car and took our money back? And the sensei is like, don't. What are you doing? Don't do that. So there's little moments like, yeah. So there's little moments like that where, he is on their side, but he's also like, all right, I have to stand for them. I have to keep on the moral ground for you girls.
Rein it in, ladies.
Yes, absolutely. So I like that he's there to at least be the girls' moral compass. So I think that's what really... I think this has potential to be a really good adaptation as well.
Nice. All right, I think that's it for the maybes.
Yes.
And so we're going to move over to the keepers, where we have a bunch of returning shows. I'm going to just rattle off my two that I have, and then I have one more, but John, you can intersect before that with your still running shows or returning shows. So, of course, I'm going to check out Slime Time Season 4. I haven't done so yet because I wanted to watch the movie, which I haven't done yet. That is set between Season 2 and 3, so technically I should have already watched it, but when Season 3 started, it wasn't available yet. So I haven't, but it is canon, but apparently it's also standalone enough, so I can watch it now. And I think there was also a special. And yeah, so I will watch this. I only did a quick review of Season 3. Might be the same for Season 4, but also maybe I'll do a full review if I manage to catch another guest for that, which I'm not sure will happen yet, but I know a person who also watches Slime Time still, so maybe we'll have them over and talk about it a bit more extensively this time around. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But I will definitely keep on watching this one because, Rimuru Adventures always are a fun time. The other bigger one, of course, is My Hero Academia Season 7, which I also haven't checked out yet, but that is mostly because it started off with, recap episodes. I think it's memories episodes or something.
Yeah, I heard there was a lot.
Yes, I think 3 or 4, and only today they released their first actual episode from the 7th season, which I, of course, wasn't able to watch yet. So let's see. I don't know if that means that it will be a shorter season or, that there will actually not be as many actual new episodes in this season. Probably. But yeah, I'm excited to check it because I think Season 6 was like an absolute return to form. And I loved it from beginning to end. It was super exciting. A lot of climactic moments, a lot of story, long build-up story threads finally coming to a conclusion or, being actually played out in a way that that they needed to for it to stay exciting. And after a bit of a letdown, that was Season 5, at least half of it, this was a very welcome return to form. So I'm super excited to keep on watching that one, but like I said, only just today the first actual episode release, and I wasn't able to catch it yet. But that will definitely get at least a quick review. We'll see what happens in the season, but I'm excited to go back to Class 1A or A1, one of those. But,
either or.
Yes, either or. John, what are what is your big chunk of returning shows?
Idols. Did you know they exist?
Yes, we already had some in this sneak peek.
Nijiyon Animation came back for a second season. It's basically like this 3-minute short thing every week that's based off of the characters from Love Live, Nijigasaki, and it's cute. It's whatever. They're being really mean with this season, though, because they're throwing in little the character designs in the show are just like, not quite chibi designs, but they may as well be. But they're being real mean because they're throwing in like these little flashes in between of some of the characters, and they're like full designs. And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Come on, guys, it's not nice. That's what I want. I mean, I don't mind this, but you know what I actually want?
I mean, it will happen eventually, right?
I mean, Nijigasaki had 2 seasons already. I don't know if there's a third on the table. I know there's a third on the table for Superstar, though.
I mean, you like that too, so at least you're going to get some more Love Life in your life.
Love Life is perpetual.
Yes.
It exists in perpetuity. Moving on. Laid Back Camp Season 3.
Ah,
I didn't know they were going to make a Season 3 until a few months ago, and I was like, sign me up. It changed studios?
Oh, is that bad?
Okay, so the original studio that did the first season, the second season, and the movie, and I feel bad because I haven't watched the movie yet, but I will endeavor to eventually, was the Studio C Station, and it has it has its own style, and, you know, it looks nice and neat. Then they handed it off to 8-Bit, and 8-Bit isn't bad. They do good work, but the character designs have changed a little bit, which doesn't bother me too much. But 8-Bit does this thing with their backgrounds. I don't know if you've paid attention to this in some of their other shows.
I mean,
where they kind of just look like painted over photographs.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, they're doing Slime Time, if I'm not mistaken. And I get what you're referring to, but also I guess it maybe fits better into like a fantasy world, like we have, you know, isekai fantasy thing like we have in Slime Time, than it maybe does in a quote-unquote realistic show like Laid Back Camp.
Yeah.
So maybe it's more egregious there.
And I mean, it doesn't look terrible, but there's some scenes where I'm looking at it and I'm just sort of like, I'm sort of side-eyeing it a little bit because I'm like, I understand why you're doing this, but that doesn't mean it looks great 100% of the time. So, but I've been able to press past that because, you know, it's just there to be a chill time, hanging out with all the girls, going on a camping trip, making some food over a campfire. So it's still as cozy as it ever was in spite of that. After that is Sound Euphonium 3. And guess what? I did actually watch movies for this one.
Hey.
Can you believe it? So there were 2 movies and an OVA in between. There was Our Promise, A Brand New Day, and the Ensemble Contest arc, which are basically required viewing between season 2 and 3. They fill out basically the entire second school year for Kumiko and the others. So if you skip straight from season 2 to season 3, you missed a lot, like a whole lot.
I mean, that has happened more often this time around. I try to remember. I think we recently had something where like the movie was absolutely integral viewing.
I think it was Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yes. Well, yes. I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, no, because if we go into the next season and you still haven't watched the movie and you're wondering I can't remember the character's name, who he is, it's like, you gotta watch the movie.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's a canon movie. I mean, sometimes with Shonen Jump stuff, which Sound Euphonium isn't, but with Shonen Jump stuff, a lot of the movies are just, you know, outside, fluff. They are set in the world, and maybe sometimes they're canon, but also they're like, it doesn't matter if you don't watch them, like Naruto, Bleach, you know, and even My Hero Academia to an extent. It's the same thing. Like, you can completely ignore these movies and just follow the anime, and you will find. But yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen, the newer Dragon Ball movies to an extent, at least the Broly and Super ones, because so far they haven't been part of a TV series, and I don't know if they're going to do a new version of that.
I hope they don't, because the way they did it for Resurrection F and Battle of Gods was like, woo, brother!
Yeah, I don't want to see those movies on a TV show budget. So yeah, it's just, they should just, you know, if they continue, they should just continue after Superhero and you know, do their own shit or whatever. Or ignore them completely if they feel like it. But I get the feeling until now those are considered canon. And I don't know if we'll get more of the manga, so we'll see. But yeah, some of these movies, and I just watched, I'm not going to talk about it here, I'm going to talk about it in the Quick and Dead, but I just watched a movie that is also just fluff. Fun fluff, but also non-canon and completely irrelevant to the rest of the show that it's based on. So,
But
yes. He's hip. But this one apparently is very integral, coming back to the actual show that you were talking about. Sorry.
Yes, watching what was the name? It's weird. Okay, so in Japanese, the movie is called The Sworn Finale, but in English it's called Our Promise, A Brand New Day. Those two names have different implications.
Yes.
So I don't quite understand what's going on with the localization on that, but whatever. It and the ensemble contest arc are required viewing because the end of the ensemble contest introduces a new character that we see straight away in season 3. So like you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it, dudes. But yes, it's this is Kumiko and company's last year in high school, and they are trying their best to take Kitauchi to nationals, so that way they can show the nation of Japan they're the best high school band out there. So they got a step closer in the movie than they did in the first season. So I want to see them take it all the way, go all the way. This has got to be the one. They got to get the good ending. Dang it! And not directly related, but I also grabbed a movie off of my Blu-ray shelf and opened it and watched it.
Oh my God. What a momentous occasion.
And that movie was Liz and the Bluebird, which is sort of a side story from like seasons 1 and 2 that focuses on 2 of the other characters. And it's sort of framed around this concert piece called Liz and the Bluebird, and they use that as sort of like the analogy between the 2 characters. And it's a lot of teen angst and figuring yourself out, but man, I love seeing KyoAni on a movie budget, so it was a really great watch.
Come on, like, what is there not to love?
So in that regard, it was a really, really good watch, and I'm glad I finally sat down and checked it out.
Yes, you finally opened a Blu-ray.
Listen, I may have some 4Ks I haven't watched yet. Leave me alone.
It's your money.
I know. So, CC, I promise someday I'll watch Sonic 1 and Sonic 2.
Sure.
Anywho, the last of my keepers is Data Live 5.
Yeah.
Oh boy, things are starting to pop off because we're coming up on the end of the story.
Really?
Yes. Because I was looking at, as I like to do sometimes, episode names versus chapter titles in the light novel. And, oh man, this past week's episode explained a whole lot. And I don't want to dive too deep into that. Maybe I will in The Quick and the Dead, but the story in its final act is getting pretty crazy. And I'm like, I was here for it from the beginning, but the studio that headed up season 4 Geek Toys is back, and they're still doing a bang-up job on it. So I'm glad to see it's still getting the love that it deserves. This show has been a weird ride in some spots, but I'm really glad I'm sticking with it to see the end, because it's been, all things considered, really good. And I'm really curious to see how we got to where we are in the story is now from what was just presented to us. So
can imagine also. I mean, it would be great if this like is a deserving finale, because that's also one of these long running shows. It's like 10, 11 years since it started.
Since 2013?
Yes, 2013. I just looked it up. I mean, is season 5 gonna be the last one? Has that been confirmed, or?
I don't know if it'll be the ending. Like, I don't know how they're coming up on the ending, looking from the chapter count, but I don't know if they'll maybe they'll do something like, here's the 5th season and we'll finish out with a movie. I'm not sure exactly what the plan is yet, because we're, oh God, how many episodes in? 4 or 5? 4 episodes in. So, I mean, maybe they could finish it in 8. We'll see. But, if they go the route with where they're going to finish it off in a movie, okay, I could see them doing that as well. But yes, I'm here to see the conclusion to the story, because it's been nuts. But that's it for me. You said you had one more?
Yes. one more keeper, and that is a new show, and that is Kaiju number 8. You know Kaiju, giant rampaging monsters. Godzilla ringing a bell, that name. Recently, a couple of movies, right? Big old lizard guy. And we have a couple of those in this show. Setting is a bit different than your usual Kaiju stuff, I would say, because the Kaiju attacks in this world are so normal that people mostly seem to be pretty chill about it if they are not in directly affected areas, at least. But it's like checking their phones and they're like, I wonder who's gonna stop this kaiju or whatever. And we got these kaiju hunters. I forgot what their actual name is, but they are kind of treated like pop stars by the citizens, and there's our heroes and whatever, and they just take the monsters out with giant guns and everything, and with battle suits. They don't have actual mechs or anything to fight the monsters, just on foot with special powered suits, and then they just go mano a mano with these things. So that's pretty cool. But our hero, ostensible hero, Kafka, isn't one of them. He is with the cleanup crew. They get rid of kaiju corpses, clean the buildings, collect samples, and all that comes with its own problems. Acidic kaiju blood, shit-filled intestines. It's really hard work. And unlike the actual hunters that cause this mess when they kill the kaiju, first and foremost the 3rd Division, they are not really thanked for it. Just, taken for granted and everything. And there's also this, personal relationship between Kafka and the main superstar of the 3rd Division. They were childhood friends and both vowed to get rid of kaiju, but Kafka failed the test a couple of times and eventually gave up, couldn't hack it. And meanwhile, his friend Mina, who actually managed to join the defense force, that's what they're called, the hunter characters, the defense force. She is now like the standout super captain of the 3rd Division, and has this kick-ass tiger that she can command, and it can just take a bite out of a kaiju and everything, and she's super cool. And Kafka is kind of like filled with regret because he, wanted to also be that and be by her side and fight the kaiju, but now he's just cleaning their shit. And literally. And, but he's kind of resigned himself to this position, at least when we meet him. But then a new intern joins his team, Ichikawa, and he also wants to eventually join the defense force. And in the beginning, he comes across as a bit cold, but he and Kafka hit it off after a while pretty well and have like this, senpai relationship. And Ichikawa also tells Kafka that they increased the age limit for the defense force test to 32, to the age of 32. So why not try again? Even if Kafka gave up at some point, but you can always try. And he's 32 now, so this would be his last chance. So maybe he should take it. And if like in the first episode, they have this neat moment where Kafka protects Ichikawa from a smaller kaiju and vice versa. But eventually they're both saved by Mina. And then in the hospital where they both recuperate, Kafka gets transformed into a kaiju by a weird mosquito thing, and he and Ichikawa have to run from the defense force. And the one tasked to hunt Kafka down is, of course, Mina. So I didn't expect this show to be as much of a comedy as it is. Like, Kafka and Ichikawa rightfully freaking out about Kafka's transformation is goddamn hilarious, and the hilarity continues after that. This is kind of a buddy cop comedy with the two of them, because from that moment on, like, Kafka, of course, is super strong when he transforms, and he can just punch the shit out of a kaiju, just evaporate it into a mist of blood. But, he also maybe shouldn't let other people know that he's a kaiju now himself, because that would get him killed probably pretty quickly. But he also still wants to become part of the defense force, so he's a bit of a pickle. And currently the other episodes I watched, they're running through the tests of trying to actually become part of the defense force. But he's 32, and in anime years, that means he's already 1 foot in the grave. So he's like lacking behind of all the other contestants, all the other recruits. And, because he doesn't want to cheat, he is not using his kaiju powers. And also, because that would maybe get him killed or whatever. But I assume eventually they will find out and use him as a weapon or whatever. But yeah, it's very funny. Like, especially his interactions with Ichikawa, who's trying to keep a lid on the whole thing and trying to help his senpai and, keep him under control, because Kafka is, sometimes doesn't really have his shit together. So their dynamic is really fun. And I assume eventually Mina is going to be joining that triangle, and also, a lot of the other recruits are interesting, and I'll eventually talk about this in the review, because I'm definitely going to review this. This is hitting all the right buttons for me. It looks really good. It's a production IG show, and it's super fun. I didn't expect it, like I said, to be comedy focused. I kind of, just from the way the promo images looked and everything, and the OP looked and all of that, I expected this to be more of a dark, Attack on Titan thing, or Chainsaw Man or something like this. But no, this is a absolute comedy show, like a workplace comedy to an extent, but also shown action comedy. And I was laughing a lot during the first couple of episodes. So
wild.
Yes, absolutely. And Kafka is definitely the main star here. He's so funny when he first transforms into the kaiju and really doesn't have it under control. It's so fucking freaky. But he's also a super good guy. Like, everyone, that's also one of the things that immediately got me into this, is all these characters are super sympathetic. I mean, some of them are played as assholes, like, especially among the recruits, because, you want an arc for them and everything. But all of them are interesting, at least, and our two main characters, like Ichikawa and Kafka, are super, super fun and super relatable and entertaining and good guys, and you immediately root for them and their body dynamic and everything. So yeah, the show has a lot going for it, and I hope it keeps that dynamic up, or that rhythm up, and keeps on delivering good, funny shit, which it has been doing consistently for the first couple of episodes. So I'm looking forward to checking out more and eventually probably review it. Also, yes, the guy's name is Kafka, and he gets transformed into a kaiju by a bug. A bit on the nose. I get it.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
But yeah, fun show. Definitely, I recommend you all check out Kaiju number 8. But I think that's it for the keepers for now.
Yeah, that is everything.
So I guess it's time now to bang bravely.
Yes. Bang. Brave. Bang. Brave? Brave Bang?
Brave Bang Bravern. Big.
In a world where humanoid armored weapons known as Titano-Striders are used in warfare, troops from various countries converge on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, including Ao Isami of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force and Lewis Smith of the United States Marine Corps. Isami and Smith cross paths during battle, but suddenly their teams are attacked by an unknown enemy, scattering soldiers and sending their forces into disarray. In order to save their friends and survive on the deadly battlefield, they must fight with every ounce of courage and pride that they can muster. This may also involve gigantic robots that are, how tall would you say, 10 stories? 5 stories, maybe?
Yes, probably. I mean,
conservatively, I think 5 stories tall works, considering the size of the Titano-Striders.
I'm trying to think of a scene where a Bravern stands next to a building that makes that measurable. Like, he's always watching or checking in with the commanding part of the army, and, that for some reason they don't repair their building, and he's always but he's always kneeling down when he talks to them, and to that open demolished space. So I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it might be 5, might be a bit more.
Yeah, I'd say 5 is probably a good conservative guess.
Yeah.
But yes, Bravern. Big, giant mecha do thing action show.
A different flavor, though. Like, at least a different flavor than, like, most of the first episode makes it out to be. I mean, we talked about this a bit in the sneak peek. But, yeah, different flavor. We'll get to that. Do you want to talk a bit about the production side of things first?
Yeah, so this was headed up by the crew at Cygames Pictures, who recently they've had their hand in a little bit of everything, but more chiefly that we've directly talked about on this show is, as you might expect, Princess Connect Redive. Mm-hmm. It's funny to think that they haven't had a direct hand in any adaptation of Grand Blue, in spite of it being a Cygames property.
That is really weird.
Grand Blue has changed studios a couple of times, not even back to their own hands. So I shrug. See,
if it hadn't changed studios, like if it was A1 all the time, I would say, oh, they're hogging it because it's a moneymaker, but apparently not. So weird.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to be some weird rights kerfuffle, because I would imagine that Cygames would eventually want to produce that themselves.
I mean,
it's strange.
Yeah, because they've done... okay, I guess they did some work on a Blade Runner ONA, Blackout 2022.
Yeah. That was the one that was released together with the newest Blade Runner Hollywood movie.
Oh, that I didn't know. Another movie on my shelf I haven't watched.
It's a good one.
They've done a little bit of Idolmaster, Cinderella Girls, Mysteria Friends, also aka Manaria Friends, which that is another one of their properties, because that ties in with Shadowverse, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, Shadowverse and Grand Blue are the convergence points for the Cygames cinematic universe. Okay, no, they did a little bit of their own work on Uma Musume. Hey, how about that?
It's the continued seasons, right? Not the first couple, but the movie and the third one or something?
Two of the movies and one of the ONAs. Or no, one of the ONAs is just like in a reformatting of one of the movies. Mm-hmm. So yes. It's so strange to see them having done only a few of their own things, but that's okay. It is what it is. This show was directed by someone whose name might be slightly familiar, and that is Masami Obari.
Yes, a legend. For good and bad reasons, maybe. He's definitely a very iconic person in the anime scape. Like, you have, like, and he's been around for a long time. I don't know what my first contact with his stuff was as a director. Probably the Fatal Fury movie.
That's right, he did work on that.
I think he's not only known as a director, but he's also, his character design is also like very iconic in a way. Like, occasionally very lewd, I would say. Like, a lot of bouncy flying tits. That Masami Obari can do that very well, and I guess that also is part of the Fury movie when you think about my scenes. But
there's also a little bit of that in this show. So
yeah, technically, but it's not as overpronounced as one of in some of his earlier stuff, I would say.
Yeah, that's true.
But he has been around like a long time. I mean, Fatal Fury movie is very old at this point, and he has done even older stuff and lots of Super Robot stuff.
Oh, apparently he did character design like on King of Fighters 15.
Yes, I mean, he's been involved with that to an extent anyway, due to, you know, his Fatal Fury involvements. But
like, I guess it makes sense after the Fatal Fury movies, but I didn't know he had like a direct involvement in any of the games.
Yeah, I mean, and he had an involvement in a lot of the mech shows, not necessarily as a director but that we talked about in the past, like Gundam Build Divers, Gundam Build Fighters. He was part of. He worked on Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphan, sometimes as an animation director, sometimes on the storyboard, sometimes he was responsible for key animation, sometimes in some shows he was just delivering responsible for the character designs. You know, he worked on some OPs, on some EDs, I think. So he's he's keeping his work up, but he was always like, I think his heyday was in the older times, like on some of the Super Robot stuff there, where he was very involved with. You know, he also worked in the key animation of Gunbuster, which is of course a big important show at that time. So he worked on MD Geist, some of the really old at this point really old stuff anyway. And some of the stuff that he does, some of the key animation that he does, is very recognizable. You know, there's this typical Masami Obari punch, I would say, that you see in a lot of his show, and that is also in the OP of this one, where, you know, when you see right before the logo appears, I think, when Bravern flies into the screen and punches the screen, that's a Masami Obari punch. There is also the pose. Yes, absolutely. So he's been around, and he's been doing a lot of stuff, and you probably have come across some stuff he was involved with for one reason or another at some point, I would imagine, especially if you've been an anime fan for a longer time. So, yeah. Very iconic director. And again, I feel like some of the stuff that he's known for is like treated as more of a comedic thing. Like maybe, that's a funny thing. Oh, yeah, that guy, right? And I wouldn't necessarily say that Bravern is breaking the mold here, because this is this is a very funny and goofy and very dumb show, at least to an extent, and we'll get to that, in my opinion anyway. But it's not how this starts out. This is it starts off with kind of a red herring episode, and I mentioned that before. Like the first episode feels, and if you don't know that Masami Obari is involved and you haven't seen the OP of the show at that point, and I think the first episode does a cold open anyway and only shows you the OP at the end of the episode. Yeah. So if you go into it not knowing anything about this, maybe the title gives you pause, but this feels in the beginning like a real-ish robot show. Something more in the way of maybe, I don't know, a recent example, 86, not as dark, of course, but, in the vein of that, and maybe Code Geass, because the robots we see, the Titanostrides in the beginning, some of them actually move around like Code Geass. They have like these roller skate feet where they can just, skate around on the battlefield. And they're also smaller the way Nightmare frames kind of are. Yes, so. Exactly. They actually, this feels like a real robot show, not like a super robot show in the beginning. It feels grounded. You have like this army training session. In the beginning, you didn't even know that it is a training session. It feels like a landing on Normandy situation from World War II or whatever, where they land on the beach and then there's enemies they have to fight, and it definitely feels like a real battle situation. And, there's the different squads and everything, and they're trying to take out like this big mech tank or whatever with multiple legs. It could be out of Ghost in the Shell or whatever. And it feels, it's a bit more colorful. There is a bit lighthearted banter between the characters and stuff like that. So it's got a slightly different tone than your grim, dark, super realistic military shit. But it still feels like, this is going for a more realistic tone. And then we have like, after we learned that this is a training exercise, we have some good-natured conversations between some of the characters, Smith and Isami, the American and Japanese side of things, respectively, the two hotshots or ostensible main characters, at a bar, and Isami's colleague Hibiki is her name, I think, is with him. Yeah, so that all of that feels still pretty grounded. Like it feels not absolutely ludicrous or anything, which is kind of a genius thing in this episode. And this is not the only time that the show is fucking with us in regards to certain thing, but it's not even really veering into Full Metal Panic territory or anything. Yes, there are a couple of humorous scenes with, Isami's mechanic, Miu, and Smith being very American. Yeah. But most of it seems rather down to earth, and things seem to get really grim there for a moment when then in the second half of the show, the aliens attack out of nowhere. The Death Drives, as we later learn they are called.
Such a good name.
Yes, it actually makes sense into what their actual mission is. But it's just like in the beginning of Independence Day, the Earth's forces are completely outmatched, and we have a really intense battle with cool moments. And like I said, there's like this cool scene where you get where they zoom out from outside of the Titanostrider through the window of the Titanostrider into the cockpit, which is something I haven't seen before, I think. And that's done like multiple times. And then you have this cool moment. What do they say? Where they say "going hard," and from the command that's what they're getting, the command they're getting, and then they're saying the American people in the Titanostriders also say "going hot," and then they attack the aliens at once. And the way the camera swerves around the Titanostriders at this moment, also really cool, like really cool, well-staged battles. And I think that continues throughout the show. Like, it gets, of course, due to reasons, a bit more ludicrous, but there are some cool battles in this. Like, some of them are over pretty quickly for reasons, but it's general. It's, I feel like, even though the mechs in this are all CG, some of the fights in this look really, really cool. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And I was looking it up. Apparently, Orange cooperated on some of the CG, so...
Yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Not on all of this. Like, yeah, definitely had have a bunch more basic shots in this, and minimal shots where it's like, okay, there wasn't that much going on here. But you have like towards the in the beginning, of course, like I said, there are like some really really cool intense moments. But all in the kind of penultimate episodes, like there's a duel between two characters. That is really, really cool and really intense. And then some, of course, the finale of the show and everything. So in generally, this is a good-looking show. It's not like Cygame's best-looking thing that is still... I mean, the only other thing I checked out is, it's Princess Connect, but that definitely looks a lot better than this. But it's still, like, it's very solid. Like, the character designs are pretty cool. And, for what it actually turns out to be, and we get to that in a second... This, I feel like they went over the top, so to speak, with what they actually had to do. So I was very happy with that. Would you agree, John?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's probably... I wouldn't call this one of the best-looking shows in the world or that they've worked on, but you could definitely tell that they made a really good effort to, convey what they were trying to do with big... dumb giant robot show. And I'm sure you do as well. I definitely appreciate that, they just went for it and, it worked out and it looks as good as it does.
Yes, agreed. And yeah, so we have this kind of realistic approach for most of the runtime of the first episode. And then when everything seems to be lost, a super robot appears, Bravern. He explodes on the scene. Comes out of nowhere and asks one of our main characters, Isami, to enter his cockpit. Enter him. I don't know how he phrases it exactly.
You have to ride me, Isami.
Yes.
It's like,
aha. And then they take down the first pillar, tower, whatever. I think there are 8 that get shot down to Earth, and that's the first one they take out on Hawaii, where they are stationed at this moment in Oahu, or what it's called. And then, for some reason, the theme of the show, the theme, musical theme, the background music, which is apparently also playing in the cockpit of Bravern, which Isami comments on. It's like, what is this music?
That's such a good throwaway thing, because you hear the music playing in the background while you're watching a show. Oh, yeah, that's good. And then Isami comments on it. It's like, oh, no, it's actually playing. Wait, what?
Yes. I feel like another show did this before, and I can't remember which one. But...
what was it? I think the one that springs to mind was within Super Robot Wars. One of the big running jokes was the Außenseiter's theme, Tronbe. It would start playing and it would override every other song in the game due to some coding error, and they kind of just kept that moving forward until in one of the games, one of the enemy battleships has giant speakers strapped to it so it can go over that song. It's like,
Oh, no.
shut up. That's so stupid. Shut up.
It's great, but that's also not the show I'm thinking about because I haven't really watched that much Super Robot. It's something else, but it's super fun. I mean, we also talked about that in the sneak peek. But yeah, it's great, and it's like, oh, no, okay, this is what the show is, I guess.
This is the tone.
This is the tone, and it gets even more ludicrous in its second episode, because holy crap, like, there is... At the first episode, you think, oh, okay, this is just gonna... The show tricked me. It made me think it was a real robot show. Now it's a super robot show, so it's going to be fun buddy cop thing with Smith and everything, and Isami and Bravern, and Bravern is just like this loud, chuny robot. So it's going to be a fun time. We're going to take out these monsters. But actually, the title of the show might have been just a giant gay joke, because this is the gayest robot show I've ever seen.
It's gay, son. Turbo gay.
It's turbo gay.
But I saw some people saying, hey, Witch from Mercury was Yuri Mecha, so now we have Yaoi Mecha.
Yes, I mean, it absolutely is that on several fronts, right? It's like, you have the stuff with Bravern, of course, and we have this great scene in the second episode where he explains to the military staff, like, they just want to know who he is, right? Because it's this giant alien, alien robot, he's talking, he helped them for some reason. They don't know why. The only other robots they encountered, alien robots they encountered, just wanted to kill them. So they're like, okay. They're a bit anxious, of course, and still, have their guns on Bravern in the beginning. They don't trust him immediately. And they were, okay, what are you doing here? And instead of answering them, really, he just starts explaining how he fell in love with Isami, kind of like when he piloted him the first time, how he grabbed his control stick tightly and jerked it up and down, and how it stirred up emotions in Bravern, and he couldn't live anymore without Isami. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh, it's like this.
Oh, it's like this show, you're really going there. And, to an extent, the show is going even harder into that direction later on, and is really confirming that thing, like, to an extent. Like, you have I don't want to give that away, but they're really like, no. This is actually what the show is going for. It's not just making, like, these illusions here. It's not just alluding to that. It's actually, no, this is what we're doing. This is not just wordplay or anything, and it's like a fun comedy bit, haha. No. We are actually a gay human human show.
They committed to it.
They commit super hard. Not entirely the way through, because I feel like it never or almost never gets as ridiculous as it gets in that part of the second episode.
I don't know about that. There's an episode later on.
Yeah, I mean, there is one episode later on. There's some episodes where it's sprinkled in between, but just this rapid fire joke, or this amount of rapid fire jokes that just cater to this particular topic, is just in the second episode. And after that, I feel like it dials it down a bit. It always sprinkles in some of that in between in every episode, but it's never going like full hog like it does in that particular moment. In that, not criticizing that, it's just like, that's how it is. I mean, if the abundance of gay jokes in the second episode is too much for you, like I said, maybe don't worry, they dialed it down the intensity a bit. If that humor is for you, though, and you get a kick out of that, and you think it's good-natured fun, and I feel like the show is never, like, mean about it, or just being super dismissive about it, or, like, mean-spirited.
No,
like,
it doesn't ever feel that way.
No, absolutely not. It doesn't feel like, yes, it's making that a joke, but it's also like, no, this is a good thing. Right? So it's not like, oh, no, this is bad because he's behaving that way. And it could have gone that way if Bravern felt more predatory towards Isami, which I had a worry in the beginning that would be the case. Because Isami absolutely, in the beginning, doesn't want to deal with this shit. Like, he doesn't want to write Bravern for several reasons. And in that exposition scene, the second episode is actually, like, interspliced with him getting waterboarded by this bald CIA guy.
Jesus Christ.
Which gives you super whiplash. But also, believe it or not, that shit with the waterboarding, as dark and horrible as it is in the beginning, and it really is, like, it feels really, like, super dark. And switching between those scenes and the stuff with Bravern, it's just peak hilarity. It's just gives you multiple instances of whiplash. But also that waterboarding shit is brought back several times, and it gets funnier and funnier every time.
It really does.
And it peaks in the perfect joke, I gotta say. So I didn't expect that. I thought it would be a one-off. So even that they managed to make funny in a good way. So I feel like the jokes they make about this, and all the gay jokes they pack in, it's still good-natured fun. It's not mean-spirited, and it feels like it's a very positive thing. And that could have gone different way. Like if they had shown scenes where Bravern just pulls Isami out of somewhere and just jams him into his cockpit or something, that would have maybe felt bad at a point, especially if Isami would have resisted it the entire way through. But also, there are different reasons why he is resisting it. Not because he doesn't like the way Bravern is in itself, like how he is super enamored with him. It's more like the whole situation itself. In the beginning, and that is also an interesting thing where not only the general setting and tone of the show is getting subverted, but also Isami as a character, because he looks and feels like your standard stern cardboard Japanese army guy who is the protagonist archetype of so many of the serious mecha or other power fantasy shows. Think Alt Noir Zero or 86 or even other genre like Sword Art in its first season or the million isekai or light novel stuff out there. We have like this one black-haired protagonist who could be you if you are Japanese, right? But you're super cool and you're stern and you got your shit together. And that's how Isami is portrayed in the beginning, as this super skilled, unshakable pilot in the training exercise. And he is better than Smith, and he's super fast, and he takes out the tank by himself, and he has this super old Titano Strider, but it's like he controls it perfectly, so he's faster than everyone else. It's like, oh, I know this person. And then very abruptly, or I guess a bit progressively, like when the aliens attack, you see some dents in his armor, and he gets kind of flustered and a bit shaken up and everything. And then very abruptly, once the Bravern shit happens, he gets turned into this quivering, pathetic mess and butt of the joke who wants to not have anything to do with whatever is happening here. And that kind of stays that way throughout the show. I mean, he gets better. He gets more comfortable with piloting Bravern, and Smith has a lot to do with that, like making him comfortable with that situation and giving him support. Although they also have, their problematic phase because another character is introduced, and Isami is not okay with that. And by the end of the show, why he was not okay with that, because there's also definitely a love relationship going on between Isami and Smith, which you can guess at the beginning. And once you realize that this is a gay show, oh, okay, this is not a buddy thing between the two. There is actually a romantic thing happening. And of course, that's the reason why Isami, when another character is introduced and he feels like his feelings are not returned or not taken into consideration, then maybe he gets angry with Smith, and that gets continued a while, and then they have a boxing match where they sort that shit out in front of everyone else, of course, and Bravern has a microphone into that blasts their conversation to everyone on the fucking ship. It's great. It's fucking great. Like this, like. This show, what it does with its characters and where it's taking them, are magical places, and or is magical. But still, from beginning to end, Isami is kind of this kind of scared person who doesn't want to be part of this and really needs the support of other characters to make shit happen. He can't do it on his own. He thinks at some point he has to do it, but it becomes very very. I promise that was not intentional. It becomes very clear very quickly that he really, really needs the support of other characters in his life, and especially of Smith and Bravern, of course, to actually be able to fight these fights. And in the moments where he doesn't have that support, he's very prone to falling back into his old, oh, I can't do this shit. I never wanted to actually do this. I just basically stumbled into this, which, is also the case. He's the complete opposite to Smith in that regard, because Smith, immediately from the get-go, we learn he always wanted to be a superhero. He's a big tokusatsu show fan. He's a big superhero fan. He always wanted to be that. So he went and quickly determined for himself he wanted to become a Titano Strider pilot. And once Bravern enters the scene, he is like, actually, no, I want to be the one who pilots this. He's so fucking cool. But that doesn't happen because Bravern is dead set on Isami for a specific reason. A reason we can't reveal here, because that's something that gets very important, becomes a very important reveal later on. But yes, because before we get into that, at least to an extent, because we can't talk too much about it because it's a big spoiler, but I just love the general sense of humor in this show. I thought it was funny. There was some edge to it with the waterboarding scenes and everything. There is this tendency of Bravern not to let people finish their sentences.
Yes.
Like, in general, he's a big fan of yelling stuff like either his name or a super move, or when he transforms, or really for anything that he feels like is necessary to be emphasized with a big ol' yell. But he also uses that as a tool, like when he maybe doesn't want to explain shit to people, or when an enemy arrives and the enemy has what enemies do, what giant enemy robots opponents do in Shonen Show. They start monologuing shit and maybe explaining their plans, or doing a bit of, now you're facing me, what we'll see how this battle turns out, blah, blah, blah. And then it's just interrupted by fucking...
And then suddenly a sword through their chest.
Sword through their chest, yes. And Bravern is not the only one who does that. Like, all the characters do this in this show. This is just a general thing this show does, where it's like a character starts to monologue about something and then it's just interrupted by some shit. It's sometimes swords, sometimes guns.
It's such a breath of fresh air, honestly.
Yes, it's really good. And it never stopped being funny to me. The way it was presented and the show never takes itself too seriously. There are some moments where it delivers some legit drama, later on especially. But mostly it's like, no, we're just satirizing the shit out of mecha shows, out of tokusatsu shows, out of shonen shows, everything that you can really think of. And then we also have, this gay component to it. And it's having so much fun with this that is infectious. Because, every time we think, oh, you got the show figured out, no, there's something new funny happening with the characters, or with the, with the enemies and everything, and what they do and what they say. And one of my favorite bits is in the penultimate episode, when there's a fight that really isn't a fight.
Yeah.
That
even the final fight is like not much.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like, there is like an almost final boss that is, of course, voiced by Kenjiro Tsuda, as he was always destined to be. But see it. That is a bit more intense. But there are also so many boss fights in this show that are just like more vehicles to a joke, to a punchline, than anything else. And the punchline is always kind of different for each of these characters in a way. And yeah, that's really good. And of course, I was being like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have minded to get some actual more real battles out of this. But since we got some of those anyway, I like that with the rest of, their opponents, they actually do some creative shit when it comes to, making fun of the tropes, of the stereotypes and everything, and the genres they're parodying. And kind of also, it's a love letter to a lot of those genres. It's not only making jokes about, it's not making mean-spirited jokes about them, just like it doesn't, in my opinion, make mean-spirited jokes about queerness or anything. It's just like, hey, we love this, and this can also be funny. And, if we look at some of the genres that we're portraying here and that we're paying homage to, some of that shit is just so super goofy, and we're highlighting why it is so goofy and why some of that shit just kind of shouldn't work. So, and that's great. That's fantastic. And on top of that, we have a bunch of fun characters. John, what do you want to go into some of them? Aside from, Isami and Smith, who do we have that maybe deserves a bit of a highlight?
So it's Isami, Smith, and Bravern.
Yes, of course, Bravern.
I mean, we have Hibiki, who's a pilot alongside Isami, and, she's very sort of enthusiastic to, she really looks up to Isami. Like, oh, you're such a cool guy, Isami. And there's like other characters who do that as well. There is one of the
his operator, even more
one
so.
Of the operators. I can't remember her name.
Wait, Honoka.
Okay, it was Honoka. Yeah, she also has big stars in her eyes for Isami. Even when he's acting super cowardly, and it's like, lady, are you sure? Mm-hmm. Really? Okay. All right. Okay.
I mean, a lot of people don't see past, and that's part of his arc, right? Like, a lot of people don't see past his pretend outside demeanor in certain scenes, like even seem to ignore when he really acts like a coward in certain parts. A lot of people only see that, the stereotype that the show is actually satirizing. They see this stern Japanese army guy who kicks ass, but also, actually doesn't want to be here. They don't see that part, and they just say, oh, he's our hero, and, Lieutenant Ao, he's the best, and meanwhile, Isami's like, God, fuck. I don't need this in my life. So,
come on, man. There's also Miyu.
Mm-hmm. The nerd.
And she's, the mechanic girl. She's kind of nerdy. At the first sight of anything yaoi related, oh boy.
Oh yeah, she loves that shit.
She's just like, yeah, go on.
Please go further.
Please continue.
Yes. She's, I guess, for some of the audience, she's the self-insert character.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There were a couple of other side characters as well, and they're on the Japan Ground Force side. There was Ryuji and Isao. They were kind of, one was a pilot who was there alongside everyone else, and the other was sort of a commanding officer.
Yes, we have also the commander on the American side of things, because this is also something I like the show. This show has a very international feel to it. Yeah, because you have these joint forces, and you have a lot of English in this show. Or English, and also Japanese.
That's one way of referring to it.
Something like that, because there's a lot of people yelling Scheiße in this show.
Yeah, there's a couple of...
Heidemarie comes to mind.
There's a couple of German cast members in here.
I think we might have one Russian lady as well? The doctor?
I think maybe so.
So, but yeah, this show has a very international feel to it, and it's fun. And I feel like the commander, I forgot his name, is also, his best scenes are being the straight guy to Bravern's nonsense.
Hal, that was his name, Hal.
Yes,
King.
Hal. Yeah, Hal. It's so fun. The scene where Bravern explains his love to Isami to them for the first time, and everyone in the room is just tired and staring stare into the long distance. Some of them, Heidemarie has her head on her arms on the desk. Yes. And Hal is just sitting there with this kind of Gendo Ikari thing with his hands in front of his face, and just staring to I don't know if it's to the roof or to the table, and just waiting patiently for Bravern to finish his story, because he's a professional. And there's just a lot of great back and forth scenes between some of these characters, just being foils for each other, and especially for Bravern's nonsense. And it's great.
Yeah, there's a missed opportunity in here to have Hal be a captain instead of a general, because then he could have been Captain King, and he could have made all of the Halo jokes.
Maybe Masami Obari is not familiar with Halo, I don't know.
I mean, but his name is also Hal.
Yes, that's
King.
true. Yeah, maybe. And yeah, we have another very important side characters that comes into the story at the end of the second episode, which is Lulu.
Mm-hmm.
And she seems to be, I mean, the show doesn't really hide that. Like, it becomes clear very quickly that she was part of a robot they fight in the second episode that is a humanoid frame, just like Bravern is one of the main boss death drives, and his name is Superbia. And apparently, when he gets destroyed, Lulu, or the pod that she is in, gets ejected from his body, and then she gets washed up on the beach, and Smith literally stumbles over her and then takes her with him, and she becomes kind of his surrogate daughter in a way. And that also leads to a misunderstanding, because of course she's naked at some point, and they're in the hotel room, and there's some, had a fight, and then Bravern falls into that building, and Isami sees them naked and whatever, and gets angry because of course he has the hots for Smith. And, all of that. But that also gets kind of resolved pretty quickly, which I was very grateful for.
Yeah, because if they dragged that out, it would have been like...
Yeah. In general, I feel like the show does not dwell on things too much. Once they get boring or trite or annoying, it's like, nope. We're switching it up, and also some of the stuff we just resolve super quickly and explain super quickly. They could have dragged out Smith trying to hide that Lulu is an alien or something for, I don't know, an extended amount of time. And no, that shit gets resolved super quickly after the hotel scene. It's like, no, she apparently is an alien. She has an underdeveloped body for some reason, which is why she can't eat normal food. She tries to anyway, but that backfires. She doesn't speak properly. She learns very quickly by watching TV shows, of course, with Smith together, tokusatsu shows. But, she's kind of infantilized girl character trope. But also they do some interesting with her later on, something very interesting, which I didn't see coming. And make her character super important and interesting, not just this side comedic mascot thing, which... A lot of the shows, other shows that this show is, satirizing and paying homage to, might have done with her character, because she speaks like a goddamn Pokemon. So, I mean,
I'm really glad they did more than nothing with her, because otherwise it probably would have been like...
And there are some characters in this that definitely get the short end of the stick, like some of Isami's and Smith's teammates are just there to be teammates, and there's not really any character development to them, or they don't really get that much screen time out of the battles or whatever. Or
it would have been nice to see more of Akira and Nina, man.
Yes, absolutely. Those are the two that I'm thinking of. They get introduced... third, fourth, I don't know,
third or fourth,
point.
Yeah, in that range.
Yeah, and they're in the battles regularly, but aside from that, they're just here to, hey, more girl characters, which is great, of course, but aside from that, there's not much to them. But I was really happy with what they did with Lulu and where they went, because that also, that kind of trope can feel really icky, if they lean too hard into it and try to make too much of try to force a kind of romantic relationship with one of the characters into it, or with one of the main characters into it, which I don't feel they're doing. Yes, there's this naked bit thing, and of course that feels a bit weird, but most of the time it feels like she is legit like a daughter to Smith. That's the character she is, and then from that she evolves to something else, battle partner and whatever. And especially in the last stretch of the show, the show kind of also becomes about her. So that was really cool. I was like, oh, okay, that's what you're doing. Interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see her, the arc become hers.
Yes, exactly. And she becomes kind of you have this, Isami and Smith become her two dads in a way, right? And she becomes their daughter through the course of the story. And that also relates to what her actual role later in the story is, and what her mission actually is, why she is in this, and what she's the catalyst for and everything. So I feel all of that was constructed pretty well and even surprising. But it wasn't the biggest surprise to me. So, the show sets up, for me anyway, an intriguing mystery. Like, who is Bravern? How is Bravern? Why is Bravern? And where does he know Isami from? Is Isami's favorite childhood toy come to life for some reason? Like, or did he witness Isami watching his favorite TV show from space as a kid and like got enamored with him and whatever? And Bravern plays very coy with information. You always get the feeling that he knows a lot more about what is going on, but intentionally keeps a lot of shit to himself for some reason. Like when someone asks him a very plot-relevant question, the viewers also maybe would like an answer to. He either ignores it or interrupts them with a loud yell or steers the discussion into a completely different direction. In certain scenes, it almost feels like he's doing a fourth wall break, winks at the audience and is like, sorry, can't reveal that yet because we need this for some climax later in the show. And, oh my god, for some reason, I did not see the reveal of what or who Bravern really is coming.
Yeah, dude. That was like...
Even though the show telegraphed it super hard, like in hindsight... I mean, there is a character that literally tells us to our faces who Bravern is, but because of the way the show sets up that character, you just ignore it. And that's fucking ingenious, in my opinion. And usually I'm good at this kind of stuff. You know this, John. I always throw out weird ideas and assumptions about who is, where a show might go with certain characters and what might be a plot twist that is coming down the road. And I'm like 50-50 on those. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But I generally make good guesses. I think the last good guess I made was in Witch from Mercury, where it's like, I think this is what is going on with Suletta and with her Gundam and whatever, and her mom.
Yeah, I can't believe how on you were with that.
So, color me absolutely baffled that I did not see this shit coming. Like, the truth, for some reason, this time the truth completely eluded me up to the point where it was revealed to us. Or like 2 seconds before it was revealed for us, I was like, oh my god, is Bravern? And then, of course. And it was probably because, even though it was telegraphed super hard, it was covered by all the shenanigans. But when that plot twist hits, I was fucking elated. I was cheering. I was smacking my forehead in disbelief. How could I have been so blind? It's astonishing and incredible and delivered with all the fanfare and pathos you'd wanted to have in this kind of show. Like, this is a smart show that very effectively hides its smartness behind also being a really dumb show at the same time. It plays entirely with open cards from the get-go, but distracts you with so much nonsense, including efficiently employing and satirizing genre tropes that you just can't see the forest for the trees. At least I couldn't. It's an incredible sleight-of-hand magic trick the show is pulling off here, in my opinion. I love when a show fucks with me in that way. I like to be positively surprised. Did you feel the same way?
Dude, when they hit me with that, I was beside myself. I was like, wait, what do you mean? That's what this is. How did I... And then looking back to one of the earlier episodes, I was like, of course.
It was right there. It was in front of our faces the entire time. And I looked at the, some discussions about this and the forums and whatever. And a lot of people definitely got that. Like, a lot of people immediately made that connection. For some reason, I couldn't. For some reason, I didn't. I was so focused on all the satire and the nonsense and the show setting itself up to be so just ludicrous and having so much out of left field shit that just kind of couldn't be in this show and felt so fourth wall breaky and everything. So I was just like, oh yeah, this is just how the way the show is. And probably I was going farther than this with my assumption. It was like, Bravern is probably just a character that knows that this is a TV show. And they're probably not even going to explain this at some point. Or Bravern is just going to, no, don't worry about it. This is a TV show, and you're the characters, and I'm just here because I need to be in whatever. It felt so meta all the time that I just didn't expect there to be an actual plot reason inside of the fucking show itself for Bravern to be who he is, what he turns out to be. And it's like, oh... wow, you tricked me, show, and I love that you were able to trick me. So, I don't know, it played my own weapons of deduction against me. Something like that. And the reveal came at the perfect time, too. Like, just when the show was starting to lose me a bit because it had dialed the nonsense down a couple of steps, it hits me with this. And it also gives this show incredible rewatch value, because now I want to count all the moments where it was rubbing the truth in my face without me, the most oblivious idiot apparently, not noticing any of it. So, fantastic. I just love the reveal of why Bravern is in the show, what he's doing, who he is. And I felt like this was really pulled off really well. It was staged perfectly. It came at the perfect time. It was a really well done emotional climax. It was just incredible. I just at that point I was enjoying the show. I was like, oh, this is super fun, and this is good natured humor, and yeah, I'm having fun with satirizing the genre, having fun with the gay jokes and everything. But that moment I was like, oh no, I love this. This is absolutely where I wanted. I didn't know that I wanted the show to go there, but it did. And I was like, yes, of course, this is what it has to be. And it also cements some of the stuff that, was pretty evident in the show in the beginning in terms of character relations and everything, and makes that make absolute sense. And even after that, it goes into that more heavily. And it's like, no, this is what we actually wanted to do with this. This was not just like a side joke or whatever. It's like, oh, okay. And we can only talk about, I don't want to give this away, and I'm afraid we already might have given away too much, because now people will look for certain things in this show that maybe would have slipped past them if they just watched it. But maybe try to just have fun with it for a while and not think about it too hard. But yeah, oh my God, I love this. The plot twist or reveal or whatever in the last stretch of the show so much. And yes, fantastic, man. And yeah, I don't know how much more we can say about this without giving stuff away or too much stuff away, because, otherwise if we talk more about some of the stuff, also some of the stuff I found funny, and some of the stuff that it's just feels like in the beginning it's thrown in here just for satirizing certain stuff, and then later it turns out, no, this is actually, there was intent behind this. So I feel like I can't talk about these things without giving you more and more ideas about why or what Bravern is and whatever. So yeah, I feel like, John, do we have anything we want to mention in regards to this amazing show?
I mean, if you just want a crazy fun mecha show with a little wrinkle in there, yeah, it's great. But I don't think we can really say much more than hey, there's a poke you in the face, but like, hey, there's a thing that happens. Mm-hmm. Hey. You should. Do you think you can figure it out beforehand? Hey. But yes. We can't go much deeper than that, I don't think, without ruining it.
I mean, knowing that there is a plot twist is already giving people so much information, or too much information to an extent. But I needed to talk about this because it was one of the things that just really, really was a highlight in the show for me. And I could not just ignore that and just talk completely around it. So, that I wasn't aware there would be one, right? I mean, I expected there to be a reveal about Bravern eventually, but I expected it to be much more meta and much more dumb and ludicrous. I didn't expect it to have a good, maybe a good emotional component, like if he had turned out to be like this childhood toy or whatever that came to life. And wanted, and if they did that, maybe that could have been good too. But no, what they did with it makes a lot more sense, and especially how the show is set up and everything. So I liked it. I loved the way it wrapped up. I thought the ending was great and fun, and made me very happy. And that's also great because it feels like they could maybe do something more with it, the way the show is structured, but also they absolutely don't need to, because it's like this well-told little story, 12-episode anime that you can breeze through, and it's entertaining from beginning to end for several reasons, and it's a finished story, and it's this great one-off. So, just super fun show. John, where can people watch this?
You can watch it on Crunchyroll, and then It looks like if you are some territories, it's also available on Anna Plus, but chiefly on Crunchyroll.
Great. And I absolutely ask you to do this. I love this show. Seems like John did too.
This show was great from beginning to end.
Yes, really fun. It's wrapped up in a really fun, wrapped up little super robot show that doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever. Only in the few couple of moments where it needs to. It's not fireworks from beginning to end, especially not animation wise. But when those moments hit, they hit. I at least recommend it to anyone who is looking for something slightly or even very different when it comes to robot on robot action.
That's one way of wording it.
Because I'm pretty sure if you open your heart to it, you will have a great time. I know we did. And that is a wrap on the 156th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in this podcast is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Find us where all the podcasts live, but also check out animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Feel free to leave us a review and rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts if you can. Follow us on the socials or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut.
Take care, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
A match made in heaven. Or hell?
And a magical adventure spanning across several decades.